He said, follow me.
The harvest is plentiful, laborers few. The retelling's here to share the good news of J-E-S-U-S of J.
Hey, I'm Bisa.
And I'm Tanisha.
And we're here with another episode of The Retelling. This episode is a story about how we can accomplish anything with the strength of the Lord and by trusting Him. And it's about our boy Gideon. Where can you find this story, you ask? It's going to be in the Old Testament. It's going to be the book of Judges, and it's going to be chapter 6 through 8. So if you want to kind of read it,
pull it up
later, please feel free to do so. We always give you the chapters because we want you to read it for yourself and see exactly what we're saying and really see the truth of God for yourself. So we're going to just hop on into it. So with the story of Gideon, I love this story because it's like the little guy. This episode is called Big Things, Small Packages. And it just shows how God can do anything. He can do the impossible. He can use anyone. He can use anything. His will is going to get done.
every time.
All the time. All the time. So let's get into it. The Midianites devastated the land, took all of their cattle, and the Israelites were impoverished. And after dealing with this for, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, they decided to cry out to the Lord. That's a long time to be suffering and then cry out. But oh, how we forget, and we all have forgotten the good of the Lord and what He has done for us in our lives. And then when it hits us, when we're at rock bottom, when we are in the pit of desperation, then we want to be like, oh yeah, God.
Now we call it.
Right, exactly. So they cry out to the Lord. And because He is so gracious and merciful, He hears them and He sends one of the homies. And what He does when He gets there is He prophesies over them. And not a prophecy of the future. He sent a prophet to tell them and remind them of where they had come from. And so God is saying, hey, remember when I delivered you from the hands of Egypt? I delivered you from your oppressors, and I gave you their land. And I told you not to fear their gods. But here we are. And when we say fear, fear is not the American version of fear. Fear in the Hebrew, because the Old Testament is written in Hebrew, and everything does not translate exactly from any language to any language. There's not always an exact translation. And so for this translation of fear, what they really mean is reverence or respect. So I told you not to be out here worshiping any of the gods. Do not fear any of the gods of the Amorites. Yet here we are.
Disappointing.
Exactly. And now you want to be calling on my name. That's fine, because I love you. That's fine. So this is what I'll do. And so an angel of the Lord went to Gideon and said, hey, you brave man, I got a job for you. I need you to go out here and handle my light work. And Gideon's like, you abandoned us. Why are you going to save us now? And I'm like, well, Gideon, I don't think he knew who he was talking to. I don't think when the angel of the Lord was there, I don't think he understood the magnitude of the situation. And the beauty in that was, for him to say that means that what is the word I'm looking for? The liberation of the Israelites, right? That stuff was passed down from generation to generation. Like what God had done for them had been passed down from generation to generation. So Gideon knew who God was. Gideon knew what God had done for His people. And then because they were suffering for 7 years, Gideon felt like God don't like us no more. He left. It's not that God didn't like him. God's like, okay, you did what I told you not to do. You gonna mess around and find out.
And did.
For 7 years. I'm gonna let you go ahead and have the consequences of your actions. You want to go ahead and worship other gods? Let's see if they save you. They didn't. And then they cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed up, because the Lord is the one true God, and He's the only one that's going to show up, because no golden calf is going to save you, no silver sheep, Zeus, Artemis, none of them, Baal, because that's who they were worshiping, is not getting ready to come and save y'all. But that's who y'all chose to worship, so I'm going to let you see for yourself. And they saw for themselves for 7 years, and nothing changed. And so they cried out. Right?
Yeah.
One true God. And He came and said, all right, I know who I'm going to send. And it happened to be Gideon. So now, after Gideon, here's this message from God. God's like, well, I have a job for you. I hear you. I hear you. I understand. But this is what you are going to be doing. This is what I have for you to do. And so Gideon hears what he has for him to do, and he's like, okay, all right, wait. You want I'm going to slay the Midianites. Now, when we think about the Midianites, let me tell you how numerous they were. Numerous as locusts. That's what it says. They were as numerous as locusts, and their camels were innumerable. Couldn't even be counted. That's how many. And Gideon's like, hold up. Little old me? My family is the most insignificant in my entire tribe, and I am the most insignificant in my entire family because I'm the baby. I'm the smallest. I'm the youngest. I am the baby. So you sure? You sure you got the right guy? This is a common theme in the Bible. You sure? You sure? You got the right guy. And God is like, did I not send you? Am I not telling you that you're the guy? And he's like, okay, if it's me, you know what? Hold up. I'll be right back. So he made a sacrifice to the Lord, and he understood that it really was God. And what I noticed about this is angel of the Lord. Angel is capitalized. And only is it capitalized when you're talking about God. So when you're seeing you capitalized, he, him, depending on which version you're reading, because not all versions do that. But when you see those capitalizations, it's talking about God. And so this angel, the word angel, was capital A. And I was like, ooh, angel of the Lord. But it was the Lord. So when he first addressed him, it was like, my Lord, but lowercase l. And then he addressed him Lord, capital L, which means personalizing and giving that respect to God because he understands who he's talking to. And I was like, that's interesting. And so then after he saw the angel of the Lord, and the angel of the Lord told him to put the sacrifice on the rock along with the broth that he made, and then he had a flame consume it, and then he vanished. Gideon was like, oh my God, I just saw God, I'm gonna die. Because you could not see the face of God. You could not be face to face with God and live. Like if you saw the face of God, you would drop dead. And so he was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I just saw God. And then the voice of the Lord said, you will not die.
Chill out.
You're good. I have a task for you. Like I'm not gonna give you a task and then allow for you to see my face and drop dead. Like that defeats the whole purpose, right? Mm-hmm. So he tells Gideon what he needs him to do, and he says, so what I need you to do is I need you to gather some men, and I need you to destroy Baal, the altar of Baal. So he took a second bull, 7 years old, to go destroy all the altars of Baal. And he was supposed to destroy he was supposed to destroy the altar of Baal and the Asherah pole by his father's house. And so he was scared of his people, and he decided, I'm going to do it at the cover of night. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and do it at night where nobody can see me because I don't want no problems. So he did. He destroyed it, and then he sacrificed the bull at the altar. Well, he destroyed the altar, built an altar for the Lord, and then he sacrificed the bull at the altar for the Lord using the Asherah poles at the altar for Baal. So he was like, we gonna burn the Asherah poles at the altar for Baal to use as a sacrifice to me, because God was like, who gonna check me? Who gonna stop me? I'd love to see Baal try. I'd love to see Baal try. So the next day, the kinsmen are like, whoa, who destroyed the altars of Baal? And they went to the house of Joash, which was Gideon's father, because they were told that Gideon did it. And they were like, bring Gideon out so he can be executed for destroying the false god, which was crazy to me. But they're like, hey, bring him out so we can execute him for destroying him. And his father was like, hold up. Nah, if Baal is who y'all think he is, if Baal is offended, then let Baal defend himself. His altar is the one that was destroyed. So if he feels some type of way about it, tell him come do something about it. Do it. And at that point, we named Gideon, I'm going to just call him Lil G from now on because he's little. Lil G. I feel like I'm connected to him in a way, so we just gonna go with Lil G. So Lil G was then renamed Jerubbaal. So I'm gonna say it's either Jerubbaal or Jerubbaal. I don't know. I'm just gonna go with either one of those. And so that's what he was named, and that meant let Baal plead for himself. Let Baal plead. I would like to see him try. So then he goes and he gathers men to fight this fight against the Midianites. and he gathers 32,000 in total. And then God's like, you know what? That's too many. Nah, that's too many. You know what? Tell all the people who are scared to go ahead and leave. And so Gideon did as the Lord commanded, and 22,000 people went home.
I can't even picture 22,000 people leaving at one time.
They were like, yeah, we out.
That's like half a stadium. And I feel like if I saw 22,000 people say, oh, I'm scared, like that might make me want to sway a little bit,
Right,
you know?
like, all y'all? Well, as little G, I'd have been like, okay.
I see how it is.
All right, 22. That's a lot of y'all. Okay. And then God was like, you know what? What's remaining is still too many. And so he said, I have a test. This is what I want you to do. I want you to go down to the river, and I want the people to drink water. And he was going to distinguish the people who lapped water in their hands versus the people who knelt down to drink water. And 300 people lapped, and he said, that's what we're going to go with. So that means out of 10,000 people, 9,700 remaining left some provisions and then went on about their business. And God was like, 300 sounds good. Like, how you come up with that number?
Right.
But 3 is the number of completion. But, 300 people is what we were left with. What Gideon was left with. That's what.
I imagine Gideon first seeing the 22,000 leave. And now all these other people, and you're left with 300 against these people who you can't count their camels, let alone the people. So Gideon probably looking around like, God, I just want to make sure that you're sure.
Are you sure? And so part of him asking, was God sure? He had asked God for a sign. Now, I don't know if y'all ever prayed for signs. I know how I have. We'll talk about it. But he prayed for a sign. And his sign was, he got a fleece and he said, Lord, if it's really me that's supposed to deliver us from the Midianites, then what I want you to do is make the fleece wet with dew, and the floor around it, the ground around it, I want you to go ahead and just keep that dry. And the Lord did as he asked. And then Gideon was like, all right, Lord, don't be mad at me. Don't be mad at me, but I'm going to ask for one more sign just to be sure. I just need to, you know how you need to double, triple check some things? He wanted to double, triple check that it was him. And so he said, so this time, leave the fleece dry and then put the dew on the ground around the fleece. And God did as he asked. And so Gideon was like, all right,
it's definitely
it's me. Right? So now he knows this, and I think by him knowing this, even though he had 300 people, he was like, somehow God is going to make this work, because you know what I mean? I asked for a test, I asked for a sign, and he did it. So we went with 300 people, and so God told him, hey, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go down to the camp, and if you're scared, I want you to take Pura. I want you to take him with you. Take your servant and hear what's being said at the camp. So he goes down with Pura, because that's the thing. God knew he was scared. So he already told him which person to take. He was like, if you're scared, take this person, because he knew it needed to, God is so intentional. He's like, it needed to be this specific person. And he already knew little G was going to be scared. So he was like, if you scared, which I already know, there's no question about it. Take this person. So they went down and they overheard one of the Midianites talking about a dream they had. And in this dream, they were saying that basically Lil G won this fight. He said, there was a loaf of bread, I believe, that tumbled down into the camp and flattened the tent. And the sword of the Lord was going to prevail. And so when Lil G heard that, he went back to the 300. Well, he went back to the 298. And he said, hey, this is what the deal is. We're going to win. And he said they can all, well, he gave them instruction on what to do. They all had a ram's horn that they were to blow. And they were going to say, for the Lord and for Gideon. And they all had these pitchers and torches in the pitchers. And they were to break them. Right? So he sent them in 3 different companies. And they surrounded the camp. And when Lil G blew his ram horn, the rest of them blew their ram horn, threw down their pitchers, and they shouted, the sword for the Lord and for Gideon. And then the Midianites immediately started running and turning sword on one another. and fleeing. And so the 300, this reminds me of the movie 300. It was just
Yes.
300. I wonder if that movie took from this. But anyway. So they went ahead and they are now pursuing the Midianites that are fleeing. And then they are calling in for reinforcements. So they call Naphtali, the tribe of Naphtali, and there was another tribe that they called. And then they also called upon Ephraim to guard the waters and head them off there between the Jordan. And so that's what Ephraim did. And then they took the heads of their generals, which was Oreb and Zeb. And then they brought the heads of the generals to Lil G. And then they persisted to have an argument. They were mad, like, so you gonna go ahead and fight him and didn't tell us? Like, you started this battle without us? And it just makes me think of how God was so intentional in doing 300 and the 300 that were selected, because he did not need anybody boasting about how it was their victory. We did this in our own strength. And so God needed to use 300 people because he needed it to, they all needed to know that it was not their strength that delivered them from the hands of the Midianites, but it was God. Only God could take 300 people and kill an army of 135,000 people. The Midianites were 135,000 deep. Now only 15,000 escaped. So I had to do math. I was like, let me add. Like 135,000 people, 300, that's crazy. You can't say with 300 people that you yourself slain anyone. Like, you slayed nothing on your own. And so then they pursued them. The 300 were exhausted and tired. So after they had this argument with Ephraim, he was like, did you not kill the generals? I didn't do it. Did you not successfully take their heads? Is your land not better than our land? Are your grapes not better than our grapes? So who am I that you are upset with about anything when you are already great as a tribe? And then they saw his point and they let it go. And then they went to continue to pursue now the kings of Midian. And so as they're pursuing the kings of Midian and their 15,000 troops, they stop at the land of Succoth. And they're like, hey, we're exhausted. Can you give the men some bread? This is what Lil G says. And they were like, nah, because you have not overcome the kings of Midian. Why would we help you? And he was like, okay, cool. I'm going to deal with you later. And then he ran over to Penuel. And he said, hey, we're exhausted. Can you give some bread to my guys? And they were like, nah, we're not. Why should we? Same reason that Succoth had. And he was like, oh, cool. I'm going to deal with y'all later.
It's hard out here.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, we're not helping because you haven't really won. That's bananas. So they pursued the kings and they caught up with the kings and they surprised them with a surprise attack and they overtook them. And then they captured, I want to say it's Zalmunna. And what's the other king's name? Zalmunna and Zeba. And he said that he would kill them because they killed all of his brothers. And so he killed them. And then after he took their heads, he went back to Succoth and Penuel and dealt with their elders for not giving them bread. He said, oh, you said I couldn't do it? Here I is with their heads, and now I'm about to deal with you. I dealt with them, and now I'm about to deal with you. And thus he did. And then after that, the Israelites were so pleased with the outcome that Lil G had rescued them from the hand of the Midianites and the Amalekites, and they wanted him to be king. He was like, you be king over us, you and your sons. And Lil G was like, nah, God is going to rule over you. God is going to rule over you, not me nor my sons. And for 40 years, they had peace. And so what happened is, at the end, when you would win a war, you would plunder the spoils. You would get the spoils from the losing side. And so they had gold and pendants and things from the kings that they had taken. And so he asked for one earring from everyone's spoil. And he built an ephod, which is like a robe that the high priest would wear. So he built that as a reminder, but it distracted the people as something else to worship. after Gideon passed. So for 40 years, they were peace. For 40 years, they worshiped the Lord, but then they became distracted and started worshiping this idol. And I just find it really, 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 really interesting that, you know, when that happens and you start worshiping idols, that you so easily forget, like 40 years, some people have died out, but I am sure that the story passed along because they were very good at relaying the information to the next generations of what had happened. They were very good.
They don't have TV. They're storytellers.
They told the story. So it was not like the people didn't know, right? So after all of that, and God delivered you, how short-minded you are, what a short memory you have that you go back to worshiping Baal. And then you treated the descendants of Lil G poorly. Like, that's kind of how the story ends, and then it goes into some more stuff, but that is a story of Little G. And so what I kind of want to ask here today is, you know, I want you to tell me a quick story of a time when you were told to do something by God that you didn't want to do or that you thought you weren't qualified to do. If you need to think, I have one. I can give you time.
Yeah, let me get yours.
Okay. So this was something that I didn't want to do. So I was in New York and I was living there. And me and my boyfriend had broken up. So I had moved in with a friend, and that was a temporary situation. And then that situation ended before we had agreed, which not on bad terms. There was just something that came up that the situation needed to transition. And so I moved in with a roommate that, I did that for 6 months. And then I moved in with one of my friends and I stayed with him for 2 months. And I needed to find my own. I wanted/needed my own. And so I was looking for apartments and I was not finding anything. I had filed for bankruptcy a couple of years before and everybody was like, oh, you filed bankruptcy, we can't rent to you. And I'm like, okay, I filed bankruptcy, yes, but I have 100% on-time payment history, which is also a part of your credit report. Like, it's not because I wasn't paying my bills. Another situation happened, which is the reason why I filed bankruptcy. But either way, I could not find an apartment on my own. And so I was on my knees praying, and I'm like, God, I felt so desperate. And I didn't want a roommate, especially after leaving that last roommate situation, and not the last one, but the 6 month situation with the person that I didn't know because I found it on Craigslist and she was about to make me lose my religion. But God was with me through that process and I did not lose my religion. I didn't go to jail, people, but there was some moments where I thought I was going to. And when I moved in with my friend for 2 months after that, thank you for being so gracious and allowing me that. Was when I was praying really hard because I didn't want to be there long. I knew that was going to be a short-term arrangement. And so I was like, God, I'm not finding nothing. It's supposed to be a short-term arrangement. This arrangement about to be over. Like, what is happening? And I said, okay, God, if I am not to live by myself, show me a sign. And for me, my sign was, I don't remember what the no was, but I probably said, like, I don't know, show me a pink elephant. I don't know what I said, but I always prayed for signs that I wouldn't be able to walk outside and immediately see. So I prayed for my no. I don't remember what my no was, but I was like, I don't remember what the yes was, but I was like, if I wasn't supposed to live by myself, to show me some sunflowers. And if I was supposed to live by myself, show me something else. Now, mind you, it's the winter, so it's not like I'm going out. It wasn't spring or summer and I'm asking for this. So I'm like, okay. So one day I'm on my way to my CrossFit class and I'm running, I'm late, it's raining, and I see a flower in the window and I stop and I backpedal and I say, excuse me, what is this flower? And the guy said, I don't know. And he said, I actually think it's a sunflower. And I was like, wow. Okay, thanks. And I ran to class. And then the next day when I was headed to class, I ran down the same street. The sunflowers were not there. It was a flower shop. The sunflowers were not there. And I was like, man, okay, God, I see you. So the sunflowers meant I had to get a roommate. That's what that meant. I could not live by myself. That was the answer. I had to get a roommate. And I was like, okay. So I wasn't happy about that because after my last roommate situation, I did not want to live with anyone else. I did not. But God said that was going to be the case. And so that is what I proceeded to do. I was like, okay, I was telling one of my friends, I was like, God said I can't live by myself. She was like, God ain't telling you that. I was like, you can't tell me what God told me. I know what God told me. God told me I can't live by myself. And she was like, how? And I explained the situation. And God, one of my coworkers said, that's right. That's weird. We look at sunflowers every day. So one of our systems that we have to log into every day, after you log in, a display of sunflowers comes up about this big and then goes away. Didn't see it. And I log into this system every single day and never paid attention that it was sunflowers or anything like that until he said it. And I looked and I was like, wow. And I was like, when God wants you to know when it's time, when it's his timing, then you will see exactly what it is that he'll have you do. And so I asked a girl to be my roommate. She said, sure. And when I say everything lined up and how we got into our apartment, all that's a whole nother story because God was all up and through that. But that was a time when I needed confirmation for God to tell me what to do because I kept looking for an apartment for myself and I was getting nowhere. And I was like, okay, God, I know this arrangement is about to end. There has to be an answer here. What is it? And so when I found out the answer by praying and asking, I was like, okay, that's what it is. And I was obedient. I didn't want to do it, but I did it. And it was fruitful, we lived together for 3 years. It was fruitful.
I love that, especially the fact that the sunflowers were there when you were logging in and you never really took notice of them.
That's crazy.
And God, the way that God moves is just intentional and hilarious.
Yeah, he's definitely funny.
For sure. All right, so my story here. I was part of a church plant. I still go to the same church, but I had been at a different church. Church came and said, we're starting a new church. We are starting from the bottom. Now we're here. And they were looking for members of the church that I was at to come along with them and help to build that church up. It wasn't something that I had ever done before, but without hesitation, I just felt Holy Spirit come over me like, girl, go. So I signed up to be a part of the church planting team. And it really was such a cool experience to see how this church built their mission and had people come in and found a place to be in. Being part of a church that breaks down and sets up, that's not the easiest, but it was all part of the mission. The church now has their own building. But as we were in the process of planning the church, we thought about where everyone would serve. That was a big thing. Are you going to be a greeter? Do you like to work with the kids, being in children's ministry? Are you going to work in parking? Are you going to be on the music team? Are you going to be AV? What is it? Because it was truly all hands on deck. When you have a team of probably about 80 that helped to start the church, everybody need to be volunteering. So what you gonna do? Even the little I shouldn't say the babies, the kids though. The kids even took on some roles and are happy to do so. I actually think it's really cool to see kids serving in church, and just to see kids being part of Jesus's hands and feet is cool. So that was cool. But I have a singing background. I played my little clarinet in high school, piano. I was a chorus girl. And I came from an AME church where we had it was a small church. It was a tiny, tiny church. But we had a small little gospel choir. I don't even know that it was enough people to qualify as a choir, but we were a choir. We sang gospel. We were a choir. And then I moved on to college and did more ministry there. My senior year was a part of the dance ministry. I am clumsy and forgetful, so it was absolutely not my ministry, but it was fun to do. So as the church was starting, I was I really want to be a part of the band. I want to be singing. I want to be in worship. I feel so connected to God through music. I see repetitively in the Bible places where worship is music, where people break into song and dance to give glory to the Lord. So that was what I wanted to do. However, I am a very nervous person often. So I was nervous, and they were holding auditions, which was like kind of a new thing to me, because I feel like in a lot of churches, in a lot of black churches specifically, you want to be on the choir, just like hop in, you know. There might be a little audition process, but usually you sing with the choir and they kind of sort out like if that's gonna work, if that's not gonna work. But these were individual auditions, so it was giving, in my mind, Broadway audition, even though it very much was not. Like the nerves of a Broadway audition. So I auditioned, was nervous, kind of stumbled through, and did not make it. And I let that, I was gonna say failure, it wasn't really a failure, but I let that moment really determine for a long time, like, okay, maybe music ministry is not for me. Like, you know, maybe I need to just be a bit of a spectator. I love to be in the audience listening to music. Like, my hands are gonna be up, I'm gonna be dancing even though I can't really dance, all of that. So, you know, I was like, I'm good with that. And I went on and I did the greeter ministry, which actually I really love to. I love to be the person outside of the church saying, welcome home, come on in, like, how can I make you comfortable? Seeing first time guests and making them happy, like, that was really cool too. But because I didn't do well on my audition, I waited not 1 year, not 2 years, not 3 years, not 4 years, but 5 years to audition again. Because I was so in my head, and I was like, you know, even though I heard God like, girl, go, what are you doing? I was like, you know, no, God, like, it clearly is not meant to be. Maybe I'm not that great of a singer. You know, maybe I'm going to like just trip up on stage. Maybe my stage fright is too big. I don't think so. And during this time, God even sent friends to me. Like, my one friend hassled me to death about this band. When are you going to re-audition? What are you doing? When are you going to audition? She even, towards the end of that 5-year period, started to recruiting other people. So they would come to me, like, even the pastor's wife came to me and told me how Mary was a good singer. And I was like, okay, God. Okay, I see how you have sent the people, and the people are not letting this one go 5 years later. So let me go ahead and re-audition for this band. And then in the re-audition, things went well, and I became a member of the band. And it's been such an experience to just be able to let go in worship, to grow in worship, to learn more musically, to understand more about what goes into music ministry and like how it gets people excited for the word. And it's been such a growing experience, and it's been so amazing to be able to just share with other people and be lost in worship. Because I say all the time, like, when I'm singing, it's not me, that is God moving through me. And I took a whole 5 years, like I said, not 1, 2, 3, 4, but 5 years to come to it, to listen to God, and to let that boldness be back in me that said, like, no, I'm going to sing for the Lord. Like, I don't care what anybody said. I don't care if I messed up before. I don't care if I have feelings of nervousness or feelings of anxiety. I'm singing for the Lord, period. So I did. And it went well. And, you know, I could have done it earlier. I could have re-auditioned 2 months later. It took 5 years. It is what it is. But
God's timing.
God's timing. Yeah, I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I've been able to be in volunteering in different positions. I've also done children's ministry. I've done some photography. So it's been cool to see how God can use you to serve in different ways, and how we have talents, we have things that we are naturally inclined towards, and we can use those things to glorify God.
Yep. What she said. Absolutely. And so when I think about all of that, sometimes we bring pain and suffering on ourselves for not moving when God calls us to move, for not always listening and not even inquiring, like just thinking we have all the answers and we're just going to move forward the way that we think is best. And with the story of Lil G, I just feel like Gideon didn't do that. He followed instruction, even though he was hesitant, even though he was like, he's the little guy, right? He didn't feel like he was qualified for that. He trusted in God to be like, okay, all right, God, if you said, I need to ask some questions. I need to test you first to see if we aligned. I need some signs. But for the most part, all right, Lord, I trust you. And sometimes it takes some getting there, right? I mean, we build trust with our family, our friends. Like, trust is something that has to be built. But in order to build the trust, you have to build the relationship, right? Because the trust comes from the relationship being built and understanding who each other are, how we operate, how we think, what makes us tick, what we don't like, what we do like, all the things, right? And so the same thing with God. You have to understand who he is, what he likes, what he doesn't like, who you are to him, who he is to you, like all of those things. Yeah. And so I think that trusting him comes with building relationship, and trusting him comes with time. And so I encourage you to take the time to build the relationship, to have the trust, right? And so one of my points, we're going to hop into my points here, are the pain and suffering. Pain and suffering come to us all, even the righteous. And so one of the Bible verses I'm going to read from is going to be James. It's James chapter 1, verses 2-4, and it says, "Consider it nothing but joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you fall into various trials. Be assured that the testing of your faith through experience produces endurance, leading to spiritual maturity and inner peace. And let endurance have its perfect result, and do a thorough work, so that you may be perfect and completely developed in your faith, lacking in nothing." Right? And so that's what we see with the Israelites. In the beginning, they went through this suffering not because of anything of someone else's doing. It was their own doing, right? So sometimes we cause our own suffering. And then sometimes suffering is thrust upon us from others. Like, let's think about the current administration here. Like, some of the suffering that people are going through is not of their doing, but of the doing of what's going on from the current administration. And so suffering happens, whether it's your fault or someone else's fault. Suffering comes, or whether it just befalls you, right? Like natural disasters, things that happen, that suffering, no one did anything. It just happened, and you have to suffer through that process of whatever it is, whether it's rebuilding your home or relocating or burying family members, whatever that is, right? You have to move through that process. So suffering can come in various ways, and it's how we deal with the suffering that helps us through the suffering. And that is what James is saying, like, count it all joy when you are suffering, because what it does is it helps build your character and your endurance, because suffering doesn't just happen once, and it's not always the same suffering. But if you got through this thing, then you can get through the next thing, and that's where the endurance comes in. That's where the character comes in. And then also, if you are enduring with God, then that's where the trust and the faith comes in, right? Because you're like, all right, God brought me through this. If he brought me through this, he will bring me through this. There was a song, if he did it before, he can do it again. Praise God right now. Like, yeah, if he did it before, he can do it again. And those are the things that help you produce your faith and your trust in him. And so that is what James is talking about. And then when we think about Job, I started TikTok, and I couldn't help but laugh. But the guy said he was playing a couple of different characters in the Bible, and he was Job, and he said, I mean, I don't know why you sought to give me the trials and tribulations package of a lifetime, but I feel like that is what Job got, the trials and tribulations package of a lifetime. I don't think anybody in the Bible suffered, like outside of Jesus. I don't think anybody in the Bible suffered the way Job suffered. And if you don't know the story of Job, I'm going to give you, and again, you know, I'm going to tell you. What I'm going to tell you, read it for yourself. But in the story of Job, this man who did nothing, he was just going on about his business, praising, worshiping God, living life. He lost all his cattle, and he was wealthy. And you're wealthy by usually how much cattle you had, right? How much land you have, things of that nature. So he lost all his cattle. He lost all his children. All his children died. I want to say he had 7 or 8. There were a lot of them. They all died. Not like one and then another and then all at the same time. He lost all of them at once. And then he lost his health. I would say that is the trials and tribulations package of a lifetime. So that was the story of Job, and he suffered, and he was blameless. Like, he didn't do anything. He wasn't out here worshiping false gods like the Israelites did when God gave them over to the Midianites. He wasn't out here making his own decisions and the consequences of his actions just befell him. That is not what happened. He was just living life and praising God, and Satan was like, hey, I want to see what that guy's about. And God's like, what? Am I serving Job? Nah, that's my guy. That's my guy. And Satan's like, that's only your guy because he's rich and has his health and he's wealthy and has kids. And nah, that's the only reason why he's praising you. God's like, oh, really? All right, well, see for yourself. And so his affliction actually came from Satan. His affliction came from Satan, and it was a testing of him. And not that God needed to test his faithfulness, because God knew he was going to be faithful, but it was Satan being delusional.
That's pretty
and God was like, oh, okay, well, if you think your arm that strong, then you go ahead and try it. And that is how Job's suffering came. And Job did not turn away from God in the midst of all of that loss. He still held on to his faith. And so I encourage you, no matter what you're going through, hold on to your faith. Mm-hmm. That's all you got.
Yeah.
That is all you have is your faith. Now, God, he is compassionate. Here are some verses that talk about God's compassion. So I have 2 Corinthians 1, 3-4. Blessed, gratefully praised, and adored be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort. He wants to comfort us. And when God comforts us, we should want to comfort others. It is because of God's comfort that he gives us the gift to be able to comfort others. He is the great comforter, but we should also be comforting each other.
For sure.
Right? Isaiah 49:10. They will not hunger or thirst, nor will the scorching heat or sun strike them down, for he who has compassion on them will lead them, and he will guide them to the springs of water. He's talking about Jesus. Right there, Isaiah is talking about Jesus. He will lead them and guide them. He was the good shepherd. He is the high priest. He was leading and guiding us with his teaching and leading us to the spring of water of eternal life. I was like, what? That's beautiful. Like, Jesus was in the Old Testament. Some people don't know that. He was in the Old Testament. He was talked about and prophesied about all up and through the Old Testament. And he was also very much there in the Old Testament. And then there's James 5:11. You know, we call those blessed, happy, spiritually prosperous, favored by God, who were steadfast and endured difficult circumstances. You have heard of the patient endurance of Job, and you have seen the Lord's outcome, how he richly blessed Job. The Lord is full of compassion and is merciful. Now, just because God is love and grace and mercy does not mean that God is not holy and just and wrath. There are many facets to God. Mm-hmm. And he exhibits them all. And one doesn't cancel out the other. Just because you're suffering doesn't mean God isn't gracious, doesn't mean God isn't merciful and loving. Right? And just because God is gracious, merciful, and loving doesn't mean that he isn't just and he isn't holy. Right? So there are all these attributes to God, and they are displayed all throughout the Bible. And I encourage you to get to know him for yourself.
Please.
It's okay to ask God questions. It really is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gideon asked the question. He's like, you sure me? Moses asked the question. You sure, God? Me? There are many people that ask God questions. It's okay to question God. What it's not okay to do is challenge God. It is not okay to question God's character and who he is, but you can ask him questions like, God, you sure this what you want me to do? You sure it's me? God, I don't see how this is going to work. Can you show me how this is going to work? Like, it is okay to question God. It is not okay to challenge him, and it is not okay to question who he is and his character. And then also God's strength is manifested through the impossible. So when he questioned God, he was questioning him because he was like, I don't see it. And with our very limited thinking, and we can only see what's happening right now, I could understand Lil G's hesitation.
Oh, absolutely. When the numbers ain't numbering.
The math was not mathing at all. So I can understand it, but God was able to do what he was able to do through the impossible, because if it happened any other way, then it's easy to say that wasn't God. But when it happens in a way that is impossible, you can't explain it. It can't be anything but God. That is when God does his best work, in our weakness, through impossible situations. That's how you really get to see the trueness and the wholeness and the fullness of God. Because you can't do it any other way. Like, there is no way. There's no way. There's no math that can make 135,300 make sense in a victory. There's no way to see 300 be victorious over 135,000 people. It's not possible. And so that is how God manifests through those situations, through impossible situations. And then he qualifies the called. He qualified Lil G to do exactly what he called him to do. He was like, you got this. Let me show you how you got this. You got this because you got me. That's how you got this, because you got me.
And he showed him that was all he needed.
Oh, I'm all you need. That's it. Now, I don't know if Mary was talking about God, but he's all you need. He is. He's all you need to get by. And that requires faith. Like, trust requires faith. He trusted God because he had faith that God could do it. And I encourage you to find ways to trust God. And then, how did Jesus model trusting God? One of my points is prayer. That's how he modeled it. Jesus prayed a lot. I need to be better. He prayed without ceasing. He taught us how to pray in Matthew 6:9. He said, pray then in this way, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. You know the rest. Thy kingdom come, thy will. You know the rest. But that is how he taught them to pray. With that prayer, he taught them how to pray. He prayed even when he was in fear, with Matthew 26:39 and 26:42. 26:39 says, and after going a little farther, he fell face down and prayed, saying, my Father, if it is possible, that is consistent with your will, let this cup pass from me, yet not as I will, but as you will. Not my will be done, but your will be done. I don't want to do this, God. This is not what I want to do. But if this is what you will have me do, if this is what I have to do, if this is what you are calling me to do, then so it shall be. And then 26:42 says, he went away a second time and prayed, saying, my Father, if this cannot pass away unless I drink it, your will be done. That is trust. That is faith. He's like, if your will be done, then I know the outcome is going to be a great reward. A great reward. And so I'm like, I need to pray more.
Yeah, we all do.
And not just for stuff. God ain't no genie. Not Santa Claus. Not just for stuff, but like really pray that the Holy Spirit lead me, guide me. Really pray that my heart be softened when it's hardened towards people and situations. Really pray that I have a heart after God, right? Really pray for patience, to trust God in all things, even with my life, to not look just to be prosperous here on earth with things, but to be prosperous in my spirit, to have the faith and the trust that is required to walk this faith journey, because faith and trust is required to walk this faith journey, right? So prayer was one. Then he also prayed for others. So in Luke 22:31 through 32, Simon, Simon, listen, Satan has demanded permission to sift all of you like grain. But I have prayed, especially for you, Peter, that your faith and confidence in me may not fail. And you, once you have turned back again to me, strengthen and support your brothers in the faith. So he knows that Peter's going to fall away. But he also knows that Peter's going to come back. And he's like, and I'm praying for you, that when you come back, that your feet do not fail. And not praying for him because he's hoping that it's going to happen, but praying for his spirit, praying so that he is encouraged, praying knowing that he is supported in this mission. And so praying for others like helps build encouragement and support. Like prayer helps. It changes things. It makes you feel better knowing that somebody out there cares enough to pray for you. And that's what Jesus was demonstrating. I, the Lord, care enough about you to pray for you, to support you, to encourage you. And so I think that's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I think that is a beautiful thing. And then the most beautiful thing is the acceptance of God's plan. Like after Gideon did all the testing and questioning, he was like, all right, I accept the duty. I am going off to deliver us from the Midianites. Here I go, trusting you in full faith. Let's do this. Although I'm a little scared because I don't see how it's going to work out. Like he didn't know how it was going to end. He didn't know how it was going to play out. He didn't know he was going to end up with 300 people. And he didn't know 300 people were going to prevail. But he trusted God enough to know that if God called it to come to pass, then it's going to come to pass. And so he accepted the will of God. Jesus accepted the will of God in Luke 23:46. And Jesus, crying out with a loud voice, said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last breath. That is accepting God's will. Because he could have took himself down off that cross. He didn't have to endure that, but he did because he accepted God's plan. Forgiveness on the cross was a part of God's plan. Luke 23:34. And Jesus was saying, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And they cast lots, dividing his clothes among themselves. Like the forgiveness on the cross, he was forgiving those who were killing him, persecuting him,
mocking him, torturing him.
And he still prayed for them. He still wanted to forgive them. Like he is still, you are not so far from God that you can't turn back. You are never too far. As long as you are breathing, you have the opportunity to choose him and thus have the opportunity for forgiveness. And lastly is solitude. Matthew 14:13 says, when Jesus heard about John, talking about John the Baptist, he left there privately in a boat and went to a secluded place. But when the crowds heard of this, they followed him on foot from the cities. And then Mark 6:46. And after he said goodbye to them, he went to the mountain to pray. Like God calls us to be in solitude, not isolation, which we discussed before in a previous episode, but in solitude, because we need that alone time, that one-on-one time with God. Like how you need your one-on-one time with your spouse. When you got all your kids, it's great to have family time, but sometimes you just need that one-on-one time with your spouse to reconnect. That one-on-one time with one of the kids to have that one-on-one time bond connection. You need that one-on-one time with God to connect, to bond, to talk, to build relationship. Like that is necessary. And so Jesus found a lot of solitude time to be able to reconnect. Because what you're doing is you're drawing from the source. You're going to the source to be refreshed, to be replenished through prayer, through connecting, through building. That's why you need that solitude. He is the well that never runs dry. And so I challenge you to see for yourself. So now we want to spill the tea. What's today's takeaway?
What I always love to see is that God uses the last person you would think of. You know, Lil G said, like, my family doesn't have that much power, and in my family, I'm still the weakest, I'm the youngest. Like, why would you ever come to me? And God is like, no, I see you. You are going to carry out this mission. And I think that so often when God moves us to do things, we feel like you can't be for real. Like, it's no way that me, like, I'm not the most well spoken. I don't have the Bible memorized from cover to cover, but God has a mission for all of us, for every last one of us, and we just have to step out in faith and let that happen.
Absolutely. My takeaway is trusting God in all things, including my life. Any impossible situation, just knowing that whatever it is, God got me. And sometimes God having you doesn't always mean like on this side of glory. It doesn't always mean it's going to feel the best, but the outcome is going to be for your good and for his glory. And so trusting him with that, not withholding things, trying to hold on to so tightly to your finances. Oh, I can't give because I gotta pay my bills, I gotta do X, Y, and Z. But like releasing all of that to him and saying, Lord, I trust you that you will see me through every situation and circumstance in my life. My life is not my own. It is yours, Lord, to do with as you will and as you please. And so with that comes a lot of trust to be able to say that. And I still struggle today. Like, all right, Lord, I have all these plans. Plan. And they say you want to make God laugh? Tell them your plans. And so I'm like, okay, try not to plan and just be like, my plan is to serve you. So how do you want to use me to serve you, Lord? And then that be my plan. Just serving him and spreading the gospel, sharing the good news, which is the reason for the retelling, to spread the gospel and share the good news. So tell us what your takeaway is. Please, please, please read it for yourself. Again, the book is Judges 6-8. It's about little G, Gideon, and just really begin to sit and ask God to reveal himself to you in that book. What is he saying to you? What is it in your life? The call to action. What is it in your life that you need to let go and give to God and fully trust him with? Is it your finances? Is it your health? Is it your children? Is it your spouse? Is it your job? Like, what is it that you really need to trust God for and have faith in that he can deliver you from it or get you through it? Like, sometimes we won't always be delivered in the way that we think, but how can he get you through that? And how do you trust him with that? So I call you to really sit with that and think about how you can do that. I know part of the ways you can do that is praying and reading, and then also having community with people who are like-minded, who can help you navigate your journey, your faith journey.
Yes, and use that solitude we talked about. We are in such a busy time where the phone is binging, the TV is going off, this, that, and the other thing. Find time that's just for you and Jesus. Prioritize that time and see what you learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be honest, I struggle with sometimes prioritizing that time, but I'm very aware that it's something I need to bring to the forefront. Like, sometimes I'm on it. I'm like, all right, I'm on it. I'm on top of my study. And then sometimes I feel like I'm so busy, I'm trying to find time to fit God in. That's not crazy. Fit God in. I shouldn't be fitting God in. I should be fitting other stuff in around God. Like, it shouldn't be fitting God in around stuff. And so, I mean, there are going to be things that you are working through. And that's why it is called a faith walk, not a faith run or a faith marathon. Or a faith race, because it is going to be a process. God is continuously building you and building you and building you. You're going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And then as you do that, as you mature, you will see the benefit of doing these things and the necessity and the difference from doing them and not doing them. Because I see difference in my life when I am doing my spiritual disciplines and I am reading and I am praying, and there is a very vast difference in when I'm just distracted and in the world and focused on the wrong things.
Absolutely.
So we thank you for joining us for this episode of Big Things, Small Packages. See us again. Make sure that you like and subscribe. We can't wait to talk to you next episode.
Bye.
Toodles.
He's the bread of life, Alpha and Omega, our firm foundation. Jesus! The well that never runs dry. You're still thirsty off the Henny and you wonder why. J-E-S-U-S is all you need. Wonderful counsel.